Thanks, Sophie. On BBC London, a vigil's held for 16-year-old Harry Pittman, who was fatally stabbed in Primrose Hill on New Year's Eve. As police appeal for information, families tell us what they saw.
More and more paramedics came. They were running with backpacks on them and running up that hill. And a girl beside me said there was a crime here.
Also on the programme, Storm Henk has caused widespread damage and travel disruption across the capital. We'll have the latest. Plus, counting the cost of childcare, the extra pressures in the London borough with one of the highest birth rates in the UK. Also, restoring Alexandra Palace as one of London's best-known venues marks 150 years.
And I'll be here at London's latest immersive experience, the Balloon Museum at Old Billingsgate.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Alice Bandukravi. First tonight, a police appeal after the fatal stabbing of 16-year-old Harry Pittman, who'd gone with a group of friends to see the New Year's Eve fireworks from Primrose Hill. He was killed shortly before midnight. It happened as hundreds of people, including families, gathered at the popular spot. Ross Miklashevich reports.
As hundreds of people gathered on Primrose Hill to ring in the new year, police cars move slowly through the crowd, heading towards paramedics who are desperately trying to save the life of a teenager who's dying. But just minutes before the clock struck midnight, 16-year-old Harry Pittman lost his life, the latest victim of a stabbing in the capital.
We saw a lot of paramedics and a lot of police. We didn't know what was going on. I just thought it might just have something to do with New Year's Eve. But more and more paramedics came. They were running with backpacks on them and running up that hill. And a girl beside me said there was a crime here. I didn't know what she was talking about.
Today the hill remained closed as teams of police officers continued to search for clues. The hunt for evidence in a park which locals say has become an increasingly dangerous place to be at night.
We begged the Royal Parks to put gates up on the entrances and exits and close the park at 10 p.m, especially at weekends, because during COVID we saw this wonderful safe park turn into an entertainment zone at night time. However, we could see the downside of that things were going on there that were dangerous.
The Royal Park said today there were equal numbers of people wanting the park to stay open as those who wanted it locked at night, and that they will install gates and are waiting for the council to approve the request. Harry Pittman becomes the 21st teenager to die in London in 2023, the 18th to be fatally stabbed in the capital. Today, his sister said the family were devastated by the loss. His former school said Harry touched the lives of many with his infectious laughter and enthusiasm for life, and will be remembered for his many qualities. A 16-year-old who was arrested has been bailed pending further inquiries, the police again appealing for more help with the case.
I know that many people will have footage and images from Primrose Hill around the time of the murder. I urge them to share that material with us via the dedicated link on our appeals.
Harry's family tonight paid their own private tribute to him near to where he lived, gathering to release balloons, remembering the boy that will now never come home. Ross Miklashevich, BBC London.
To the stormy weather now, which has caused widespread damage and travel problems in London this afternoon. Storm Henk has brought strong winds and heavy rain to the capital. Well, Sarah Thornton will be able to tell us what's caused the high winds. But first, Harry Lowe has more details on what the emergency services have been dealing with, Harry.
Yeah, it's been wet, wild and windy out there, Alice, and London Fire Brigade says it's received at least 30 calls since 3 o'clock this afternoon. And that's things in precarious positions, it says, so things like fallen trees, scaffolding, roof tiles and even solar panels. And if you look at these images from Greenwich in southeast London, they show scaffolding collapsing just before 4 o'clock this afternoon. Moments later, another segment came down. And we've also seen trees being toppled by Henk. So here we have Oxley's Woods in Eltham in South East London, with emergency workers trying to cut away fallen trees. And of course, we've also had images on social media of a Christmas tree blowing onto Tottenham Court Road, right outside the tube station, and some quick-thinking pedestrians jumping into action to try and move that tree out of the oncoming traffic. London Fire Brigade storm-related advice is stay inside if possible and only travel if you have to. Beware of areas where you'll be exposed to side winds and falling debris, and don't shelter under trees under any circumstances. They say only call 999 in an emergency or if there is a risk to life. And if you see a fallen tree, report that to your local council. Some good advice there. Now, of course, for people trying to get out and about today, this has been very problematic, hasn't it? Yeah, widespread disruption, as you might expect as a result of this. The Dartford crossing, for example, is completely closed. So traffic is now going through the tunnel, and there's likely to be large delays on the M25 as a result of that. A lot of debris on the tracks in various parts of London and Greater London. So you're looking at delays on at least half a dozen of the tube lines because of trees and other items like that. There's a power supply issue between Watford Junction and Euston, which is affecting overground trains. There's no overground trains at all between Barking and Gospel Oak, so that's a no-go for lots of people, and severe delays on the Elizabeth line as well, which obviously is a key link to lots of people in South East London, and west of Paddington there's nothing at all as well due to power supply issues. So it's a really tricky situation. South Eastern also has at least 4 lines blocked due to various items on the track, so it's going to be a really hard journey home for lots of people tonight. It certainly will do. Sarah, as Harry was saying, Storm Henk having quite the impact. Yeah. Where are these high winds coming from?
Yeah, an area of low pressure moving across the UK, west to east, named by the Met Office this morning as Storm Henk. It gave us and parts of London an amber weather warning. That's the second highest tier of warning from the Met Office. That's still in force, actually, Alice, until 8 o'clock this evening. I did take a look at the wind gusts that we've had through the day today. Heathrow is the strongest one we saw about a couple of hours ago, 69 miles an hour there. But you can see right across the Greater London area, we've had some very strong winds, severe gales, and that, of course, enough to bring down branches. And the winds are easing a bit through this evening, but there'll still be enough power in the gusts into tomorrow morning to potentially bring down more branches, and as Harry says, cause more issues on the rails and roads. And we'll be getting more from you later on in the programme with a full forecast, but for now, Sarah Thornton, Harry Lowe, thanks very much. Health services across the capital are gearing up for the longest strike in NHS history. From tomorrow, junior doctors will be walking out for 6 days in a dispute over pay. Thousands of planned operations and appointments will have to be rescheduled. Our health correspondent, Carl Mercer, has more.
So here, the type 6 on the 25th, and then it's in type 5 or bowels not open.
There's still a little Christmas cheer here on the acute medical unit at Epsom General, and on the face of it, it seems like a normal day. But staff here, as they are at hospitals across London, are preparing for something the NHS has never seen before. A 6-day strike by junior doctors that starts tomorrow morning. This week is usually the busiest of the year, so it will be tough for patients and staff alike.
We are expecting unprecedented disruption, actually, because it's going to be the longest strike, but we are prioritising all of our emergency care and urgent care. So we've made lots of plans with amazing colleagues, our consultants, our nurses, our physicians associates to come and support us in providing emergency care across the trusts.
The NHS has got used to planning for strikes, concentrating its efforts on emergency care, but the dispute is having a huge knock-on effect on planned operations. In the year since the junior doctors' strike began, nearly 340,000 appointments have had to be rescheduled. In the last strike alone in December, which lasted 3 days, more than 25,000 procedures had to be put off, and more than 4,500 junior doctors were on strike.
It's going to be difficult. This is the busiest week that the NHS experiences year on year. So we know this 6-day strike, junior doctor action, industrial action is going to be disruptive. But the NHS, unfortunately, is used to planning for industrial action now. We've had a year of it, so organisations across London know what they're doing.
There'll be a lot of people, won't there, for whom this is not the first time they've had appointments cancelled and procedures cancelled.
There's no denying that this is going to be disruptive to people's care, but we are prioritising those people who need their care most. So we are continuing to manage all of our trauma, neonatal care, intensive care, And then we are prioritising people who need urgent surgery, and your appointments will be rescheduled.
The NHS advises for people still to go to hospital or call 999 if they need emergency care, but to call 111 or try their local pharmacy if it's not an emergency in the coming week.
Well, Carl's here. Carl, it's always a challenging time of year, but it's set to get even harder the next few days.
Yeah, and what Harry and Sarah were talking about will not help either. Big storms like Storm Hank are going to make it even worse, because traditionally this is the busiest week of the NHS's year. Because people haven't been to their hospital over Christmas, they've delayed it, perhaps, so they all turn up in the first week of January. That's one of the issues. You've got winter is the second issue, and winters are normally quite bad, more flu, more COVID. And things like Storm Hank are going to mean more trips, more falls, more car crashes, more scaffold collapses. All of those sort of injuries are going to pile more pressure on. And a lot of these hospitals, like Epsom and St Helier, where we were today, something like 80% of their junior doctors will not be at work for a whole week. And they make up a huge amount of the workforce. So you can see the issues that all of these trusts are dealing with. And I think there is a lot of consternation in the NHS in London about how long this strike is going to go and what effect it will have.
And so is there any sign of a resolution on the horizon to this dispute?
No, not at all. The two sides as far apart as ever. The junior doctors saying we will not call off the strikes unless we get a decent offer from the government. The government saying we're not going to talk to you unless you call off the strikes. So the two sides as far apart as they've ever been, and no real sign that it's going to get any better anytime soon.
OK, well, as ever, thank you very much, Carl Mercer. A look at some of the day's other news now. Families who lost loved ones in the Grenfell Tower fire say they've been left in limbo regarding the tower's future. 72 people died when the Grenfell Tower block in West London caught fire in June 2017. No decision's been made about what will happen to the tower in North Kensington, which remains covered in protective wrap. And a body's been found in a search for a missing runner from London. Edward Catmer was reported missing in the Cumbrian Fells on New Year's Eve. A mountain rescue team searched the area and discovered a body yesterday in the Cross Fell area of the Pennines. As more councils edge closer to bankruptcy, Havering on London's Essex border says it's battling with the added pressure of one of the highest birth rates in the UK. While some schools in the inner boroughs are emptying out, nurseries in Romford are oversubscribed. Adriana Algeta has the story.
A busy nursery in Romford. In the past 2 years, it's got even busier. As many parents move into the suburbs, they are struggling to find a nursery spot.
When I moved here, I emailed quite a few nurseries, and a lot of them didn't get back to me, a lot of them didn't have space. I do have a couple of friends who are looking for places and they are not getting anywhere.
When I tried to change my working hours and my working pattern, I couldn't find a space to, there was just no space to be able to fit around my work. So I had to wait, I think it was like 9 months before I could actually change my days at work that worked for me.
Here in Romford, this nursery has had to open 2 more premises in the last 18 months just to keep up with demand. Still, the waiting list is around a year long.
We've seen probably in about the last 6 months about an 80% increase of occupancy requests, inquiries coming in, show rounds coming in, because of the demand of parents coming into the area and needing childcare spaces. New families, young parents, people that are needing to get to London. We are having parents that are looking a year in advance. We took a registration this week for 2025 and the baby's not born yet.
The borough's growing population is putting extra strain on the council's budget for schools and social care.
Over a number of years now, the population, the demographics within Havering have radically changed. We've always been known to be an elderly borough, and we still are. We've still got the second oldest population in London, but what has radically changed is the young person's population in Havering. And what we saw from the census last year was that between ages of 0 and 14, we had the 4th fastest growth in the country. The funding that we get from central government just doesn't touch the side. The formula that's used is woefully out of date, and as a result, we're getting nowhere near the amount of money that we need.
In a statement, Education Secretary Gillian Keegan said that Outer London schools will receive £112 more next year per pupil. She said, school funding is increasing by nearly £2 billion in the coming year in England, taking the total amount to nearly £60 billion. Adriana Elgeta, BBC London.
London's New Year's Eve fireworks display was spectacular for many, but some have described the event as absolute chaos after dozens of people claim they paid for a ticket but couldn't get in. Footage shared on social media showed huge crowds, with some saying they were refused entry and had to watch from streets away. City Hall says fake tickets were to blame. Megan Owen has the details.
The spectacular scenes of London's New Year fireworks. But behind the scenes, a very different picture. Dozens took to social media to complain about standstill queues and mini stampedes. 9-year-old Caitlin spent the night in tears. She'd hoped to bring in her birthday by watching the display at midnight, but despite having tickets, her family didn't get anywhere close.
Then it just turned into chaos, really, and mayhem. There was lots of pushing, shoving. It was like being at the front row of a concert, really, and I thought, oh, this isn't very good. Then they shut the gates and people started expressing their thoughts quite loudly and chanting, so we decided it was time to move and get away from that situation.
The start of my birthday was scary.
And why was it scary?
Because there was loads of people pushing and shoving.
Anthony lives in California and had brought his wife and son to London for the first time in 5 years.
There were no organisers all evening. The queue just fell apart and people just surged towards the gate. So everybody got trapped into that funnel. We found a break in the railings. We got out around 11:40 and just left.
There are reports of fake tickets being used to enter. Nikolai brought his through the official website. He queued with his friends from 4 p.m, but this was their view at midnight, obscured by a building.
And then out of nowhere, the crowd started rushing and pushing, and it felt very unsafe and scary. And then around 11:30, we were outside the gate, and there was like hundreds, maybe thousands of people just all outside this small entrance. I think it would be nice to have a public apology, to get refunded for our tickets because we didn't get to go in, and maybe even some compensation for us that travelled.
A spokesperson for the Mayor of London said, while the vast majority of ticket holders enjoyed the display, we're sorry if any ticket holders were unable to fully enjoy the evening. A number of people arrived at ticket gates with fake tickets and were refused entry, and unfortunately this led to delays at entry points. City Hall continues to work closely with the Met Police to tackle the sale of these fake tickets.
I just think it was poorly organised. They needed more people on the street, just allocate different times for people to arrive, really, because if everybody turns up at the same time, it's not going to work.
At the end of a 2-week vacation, this was going to be the highlight. It was disheartening that it didn't finish as we expected it to finish.
That special midnight moment, for many, spent caught up in chaos. Megan Owen, BBC London.
Now, if you're looking for something to do indoors to get away from all this wet weather, there are many new attractions, exhibitions and experiences on offer in the capital. One of the latest is the Balloon Museum, which has opened in the capital after touring Europe and America. Michael Mackenzie dived in.
I'm here at London's latest immersive experience here at Old Billingsgate. It's called the Balloon Museum. It boasts of 20 artists that are on display here. It's not the only immersive experience going on at the moment in the capital. We also have Bubble Plastic, which is in Wembley, and then we have the Cute exhibition, which opens at Somerset House in a couple of weeks' time. All of these are ticketed, and this one isn't cheap. Prices start from about £18 to £32. Well, earlier on, I was given a sneak peek. The Balloon Museum was founded in 2020. Since then, it's travelled the world and attracted more than 3 million visitors. It now arrives here in London.
We like to define the Balloon Museum as an art interactive exhibition, because all of our artworks are made by really famous artists.
Guests are invited to touch and interact with the installations, which I also immersed myself in, which felt quite disorientating.
It's joined into an exhibition in which people come and feel something like a joke, but it's art. It's a feeling that join each other.
The Balloon Museum explores the history of the inflatable objects and has 20 artists on display. The exhibition runs until the 18th of February. Michael Mackenzie, BBC London.
Now, Alexandra Palace is being given a birthday repair job for its 150th anniversary. The Grade 2 listed site in North London has received more than £500 million from Historic England to start work on restoring its derelict old offices, which the Palace team says is the last truly inaccessible area of the 7-acre site. Lakshmi Gopal reports.
For a century and a half, Alexandra Palace has served as a place of recreation. Now, part of it is in desperate need of repair.
The roof is falling in, the floorboards are rotten. It's amazing because it's right next to all parts of the building that had been restored and in good condition. And it's really worrying. The skylights are collapsing in, there's some tilting in like capsizing ships on top. And it's really dangerous, it could become dangerous. So now is the time, we couldn't leave it any longer.
The Palace's theatre, currently staging A Christmas Carol, has had more than 500,000 visitors since its restoration 5 years ago.
I don't think you could have chosen a better place to put it on, because, you know, the history of the building, it being the People's Palace and providing leisure facilities for basically the working classes. Which is a very kind of Dickensian thought process. And I've got to say, I mean, you do meet people after the show, and people that have never been here before just go, wow, it's incredible, you know. And it is. It's amazing.
Entertainment is embedded in the whole venue's past, from racing to a rifle range, from boxing to boating to ballooning. The North East Office building was the base of BBC TV studios, and as far back as 1875 it was a ticket office and costume room. The Historic England grant will kick-start its restoration into a volunteering and archive hub.
It is bringing back to life the most derelict area of the palace. I've never even been there in all the years I've been at Ali Pali. And what's really exciting to us is that this space was never used for public. It was always private offices, and we will be opening it back up for public use and for public benefit. And that, I think, is an incredible, exciting time in our history.
This site has a long, rich history of providing entertainment for the masses, and it's hoped this new phase of restoration will help that continue into the future. Lakshmi Gopal, BBC London.
Now, if you're up for a new challenge this year and have some time to spare, the Royal Parks are recruiting for conservation volunteers to join their teams across London. They're looking for people prepared to spend time outdoors, even in today's wet and windy weather, as Layla Hayes found out today at Richmond Park.
They're called the lungs of London. 8 royal parks providing fresh air and green space across the capital. Richmond Park is known for its deer, but it's also home to hundreds of volunteers who help the managers and staff to look after the park.
I've been a volunteer at Royal Parks now for 2 years. I was looking for something to do after I retired. I love it because it's good for me, it keeps me fit, my own well-being, make lots of new friends and learning new skills all the time.
I heard about it through word of mouth. Friends of mine told me it was good fun, so I decided to try it out.
Even in the pouring rain?
Even in the pouring rain, yes.
It costs £60 million a year to maintain the Royal Parks, and the vast majority of that has to be raised by the Royal Parks charity. So the work of volunteers is vital.
We have 2 types of deer in the park. One is called the red deer, and we have the fallow deer.
As well as the conservation volunteers, there are also rangers like Diane, who's been working in Richmond Park for 18 months.
I work in IT, which means like I spend like 8 hours a day in front of the computer. This gives me the opportunity to go out and like exercise myself as well. So it's like a couple of seeds that you plant, which helps great way.
The Royal Parks are still looking for conservation volunteers, and anyone can apply.
anybody can. Quite a lot of our opportunities are really flexible, and all of the training and anything that you might need we provide. So really it's if you want to get out into the spaces, if you want to meet people, or it might be good for your mental health, or even you want to learn a new skill, then there's something for you.
The royal parks are visited by more than 5 million people every year, and the volunteers are helping make those trips so memorable. Layla Hayes, BBC London.
OK, well, Sarah Thornton is back now with a look at the weather, and it hasn't been a great start to 2024.
I think that's probably fair. It was actually quite nice yesterday morning, if you remember, but very quickly it kind of went downhill. And of course, today we ended up with our first named storm of 2024, Storm Henk. It really has brought some impacts across much of the south of the UK through the day today, and of course across the Greater London area as well. Just a reminder of what we talked about a few minutes ago. 69-mile-an-hour wind gust is the most we saw, well in excess of what we'd expect this time of year. We're talking about severe gales at many spots around the Greater London area. We still have the most severe for us weather warning, which is this amber weather warning for the severe winds in force until 8 o'clock this evening. But I fancy we've probably seen the peak of the gusts we're likely to see for the time being. And thank you to our weather watcher who captured this picture, just showing how wet and windy it was out there. Now, all of that is clearing away in the next few hours. Behind it for tomorrow, still a little squeezing isobars, the white lines there suggesting it'll still be breezy, and then a system bumping in on Thursday. After that, there is some dry weather to talk about, I promise, but perhaps not for tomorrow. Although the winds are easing down, there will be still a number of showers around, and there's that hook of Henk moving away, and then through the night tonight, some showers feeding through. The wind gusts by first light tomorrow morning, something around 30, possibly 35 miles an hour, so still pretty gusty, keeping our temperatures up above average for the time of year. And then through the day tomorrow, there's winds slowly continuing to ease, but enough around, I think, to still bring down some loose branches here and there and give us a few showers in the afternoon. 11 Celsius, good few degrees above average for the time of year. That is a situation that is likely to change. As we go towards the end of the week, we start well enough on Thursday, and then through the day, we've got some wet weather bumping in. It's that little system we just saw on the pressure charts. So in by the end of the afternoon is how it's looking, although I would say that the northern extent of this does keep waxing and waning. But crucially, it comes in and then it clears away, and then pressure starts to build. And by Saturday, high pressure building across the UK. But on the air mass chart, you can see it brings the blues, the colder air. It's going to be very, very different then by the weekend, after we lose those strong winds through this evening and then slowly through the day tomorrow in the showers as well. A lot of sunshine at the weekend. It will feel quite a bit colder though, with some frosts.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And that's about it. I'll be here later with our 10:30 programme. And in the meantime, you can get all the latest on our website and, of course, on the BBC News app. From all of us here, do have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.